Chapter 3. Bethany and I were still standing and shivering in the middle of the driveway when my sister Carol found us. She had brought out a fleecy blanket and helped me place it around Bethany's shoulders. "Come on, sweetie," Carol said in a soft, kind voice. "Let's all sit together in my dad's office, okay?" At first, Bethany refused. She replied through her convulsing tears, "I don't want to go back into the house." "I know, sweetie. What my mom did to you was cruel and way over the top, but she can't get to you now. We will make sure of that. You are safe in my dad's office with us, okay?" Bethany looked up at me for reassurance as I nodded. "I love you, Bethany. I promise she won't get to you again. Okay." Bethany nodded and whispered, "Okay, but if she attacks me like that ever again, I will never come back." "I know, Cherry Cola. You are safe in my arms. No one is going to do this to you ever again." Bethany held on to me as we sat on the love seat in my dad's office. He was an independent architect and operated his business from home. He earned a decent income, but most of our money came from an inheritance on my mother's side. Mom also earned a lot of money as a lawyer, but again, neither she nor my dad needed to work for a living. I think she did it just to get out of the house and feel like she had control over everything. My dad worked to stay away from Mom and avoid her crazy side. Dad was very much like me. He hated conflict and withdrew whenever things got bad between them. One by one, my brothers, my sister, their spouses, and Dad all joined us in his office. Bethany watched them all warily through her tear-swollen, puffy eyes. Her mascara had streaked down her face, and she looked like a sad, forlorn girl. When we were all gathered, Carol looked at Bethany and said, "Sweetie, please know that none of this is your fault at all. Our mother has major issues, and for some reason she is hardest on Clinton. You just happen to be part of Clinton's world. That's the only reason she's targeted you. None of us know why she acts like that. But you are not a problem for our family. We all really like you, and I can see why Clinton is in love with you. You're a little sweetie." Bethany was still snuggling my arm and gripping it tightly. As she laid her head on my shoulder, she silently looked around the room at everyone. Then my brother Wyatt spoke up. "When I first brought Geraldine home to meet Mom, it was a complete shit show. I almost lost Geraldine because of it. We only come here at Thanksgiving and Christmas. If you and Clinton get married, I am sure you will have to set up the same boundaries with her." Bethany pursed her lips, looked up at me, and let out a sigh. I asked Bethany, "Are you going to be okay?" She looked into my eyes and gave me a shy, pretty smile before whispering, "I'll be okay." She lifted her head from my shoulder and wiped her face with her hands as she tried to remove the mascara streaks below her eyes. Carol walked over to Bethany, held out her hand, and said, "Come here, sweetie. I want to give you a hug." Bethany stood up and allowed Carol to embrace and hold her. "I'm so sorry this was your introduction to our family. You seem to be such a kind girl, and I believe Clinton is head over heels for you." Bethany laughed as she hugged Carol. "I'm head over heels for him too." Everyone hugged Bethany and said things like "welcome to the family" and "I am happy Clinton has found you. And we have all been through what you experienced tonight." After the meeting in Dad's office, I managed to convince Bethany to stay the night and assured her that if things even started to get a little out of hand with my mom, I would drive her back to the university at any hour of the night. Carol found a bunch of board games and soon got everyone except my mom involved in playing. We all played Trivial Pursuit and Pictionary. Bethany was shy at first, but as the evening went on, she started to come out of her shell. Then by the time Pictionary started and we all formed teams of girls versus the guys, Bethany's true fun-loving and teasing nature came out in full force. She made everyone laugh to the point of almost hyperventilating. Her wit and charm were brilliant. She even got my oldest brother, Albert, laughing hard, and he's usually a stick in the mud. He too is a corporate lawyer like my mom, but without the crazy temper. Albert actually started teasing Bethany back when he imitated her high voice. He never teases anyone. This made all of us almost inhale the cheesies we were eating. It was so funny. Then, as if it weren't enough, Bethany imitated Albert's low voice and even had the facial expressions to go along with it. Albert's wife, Cindy, was laughing so hard by this time that I thought she was going to pass out. When I went to the kitchen to get more cheesies and pop, my sister-in-law, Geraldine, touched my arm and said, "Bethany is adorable. We have all fallen in love with her. How did you meet her?" I told Geraldine how we met over spilled pop and Bethany's cherry cola apology replacement drink. "I suppose that's why Morna hates her then," Geraldine replied. "Yeah, neither Bethany nor Morna are the best of friends. Oh, Clinton, Bethany has nothing to worry about there. She's 10 times the better girl for you than Morna ever was." Can you tell her that? Right now she feels like this awkward guest who is still trying to figure out if she is even allowed to breathe. Mom's freakout has been brutal on her. "Do you think she is worthy of the circle?" Geraldine gave me a knowing smile. "To me, she is my forever girl, so yeah. She's circle worthy." Geraldine smiled again. "Okay then, let's all meet before bed." Circle time. That was a moment when we as children would all gather without Mom and Dad. It was our way of sticking together and supporting each other whenever my mom would lose it. It started as a sibling support group, but we included spouses as they came into our lives. We all shared the same trauma of Mom, so we understood what each of us was experiencing. I attended my first circle group as a 4-year-old. Carol was 13 at the time and really took me under her wing. I see Carol as the mother I wished I had. She is kind and sensitive, but also tough when needed. She wouldn't hesitate to give me a hard time if I did something stupid, but she was also the first to protect and defend me if she felt I was being attacked by Mom. I realize now that she had also extended that protection to Bethany as well. When I explained circle time to Bethany, she was a little uncomfortable at first. To her, it almost sounded like a ritualistic seance. Her first circle time was right after we all played Pictionary earlier in the evening, and as we were getting ready for bed. My brother Wyatt peeked his head into our room and said, "Time for the Hamilton family initiation, Bethany." We all gathered in our pajamas in Albert's old bedroom at the end of the upstairs hall. His room was the furthest from Mom and Dad and had become a circle group haven for all of us over the years. Bethany stayed close to my side as we entered the room. The lights were off, and 4 cinnamon-scented candles had been lit and placed in the center of the floor. We all sat down cross-legged, and Carol and Cindy giggled as soon as they saw Bethany's adorable little puppy slippers. Cindy said with a chuckle, "You do realize, Bethany, I think we're all falling in love with you as much as Clinton is. Those are the cutest slippers I've ever seen." Bethany gave me a big smile and responded to Cindy, "Clinton got these for me last Christmas. He knows how much I love puppies." Albert handed out mugs of hot chocolate to everyone. We all had our names on them written in permanent ink. We never used the mugs for anything else except circle time. They were all stored in Albert's old room. He also handed Bethany a mug with her name newly printed on it with fresh permanent ink. Albert lifted his mug and said, "Here's to our newest member of Circle Time. Welcome, Bethany." Everyone toasted each other as we clunked our mugs together. Bethany started to get the giggles, but pursed her lips to try to stop herself from ruining what she first thought was some weird sacred Hamilton family ritual. Albert smiled at Bethany and said, "We come together like this because we have all experienced trauma at different times from our mother. In this group, it's safe to speak honestly. Often we all share what's on our minds to help each other heal. We love our mom, but we know she isn't always mentally balanced." Albert looked around the room and then said, "I can go first if it helps break the ice. Last week, Mom called me and started reaming me out about some stupid form that she insisted I had forgotten to submit to her legal co-counsel. She eventually found it in her own briefcase, but not before publicly shredding me in front of the staff. It was really humiliating." Cindy then added, "For me, it's when I see Albert coming home after a hard day at work and I know that Mom has dragged him through the mud again." She looked at Albert, placed her hand on his face and said, "It breaks my heart when I see this beautiful, kind, and loving man get beaten up by someone who should be so proud of him." Cindy started to tear up. Carol looked at me and said, "It breaks my heart when I see my baby brother bring home this gorgeous, sweet, angelic girl, and then watch as Mom starts to let her petty jealousies overtake her senses." When it came to me, I said, I wanted today to be a good day. I wanted Mom to fall in love with Bethany for who she is. We almost pulled it off, but then Morna had to be there to ruin everything. I looked at Bethany and added, Bethany, I love you so much, but I'm also scared that you will want to run away from me after this day, after what you've experienced with my mom. Bethany wiped away tears as she smiled at everyone and said, I cry a lot over emotional moments like this. Clinton is used to me, and that's who I am. She looked at me and gently said, Baby, I love you so much too. You will always be my soulmate forever. I won't run away. I promise you in front of your family that I'll stay with you as long as you will have me. Our family, Albert said. Bethany, you said your family, but I think you meant to use the word our, as in you belong to our family just like all of us. Oh my gosh, Bethany replied as more tears streamed down her face. This is so beautiful. Thank you for letting me be part of this. She looked away for a moment to control her emotions. Everyone waited for her response. She continued, My family is really loving, and I've never had my mom or dad ever yell at me like that. When I experienced this earlier tonight, it frightened me so badly I felt paralyzed. I didn't know what to do. Why does she do that? Why so much anger? Wyatt shook his head and responded, We don't know why, Bethany. Therefore, we meet like this to try to figure it all out. When we all go back to our own homes after the weekend, we will all vow never to come back again. But we all love Dad and don't want to punish him because he loves our mom. Originally, Mom had put Bethany in one of the spare rooms and me in my own bedroom. But considering the earlier events, I didn't want Bethany to be alone in a strange house, so we decided to sleep in my bedroom together. I know this was playing with fire as far as my mom was concerned, but I was ready to leave this family forever if my mom hurt her like that again. Bethany got a big kick out of seeing my room. All my sports trophies, posters of cool cars, and even my autographed copy of the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. She looked through all my school annuals and laughed when she saw my elementary school pictures. You were so cute, Bethany exclaimed. Look at those chubby little cheeks. If you were my baby boy, I would kiss you all over your face. As we lay in my bed together, Bethany snuggled into my side and tucked her head under my chin. She gently ran her fingers across my chest and whispered, I'm really glad we stayed. I loved circle time. That was what I wanted Bethany to experience. Circle time had done its magic, and they had all made sure that Bethany felt loved and welcomed. I don't think she would have ever visited our house again if circle time hadn't happened. It made her realize that we were all in this together and had strength in numbers. I was just counting my lucky stars that meeting my mom like that didn't ruin our relationship. My mom and Bethany never got along at all. Mom hated it when Bethany would defend me in front of the family if she ever saw me get criticized or run down. She was always jealous of Bethany for some reason. I could never quite figure out why. The next morning brought bright sunshine. Bethany tied her hair in a ponytail and went downstairs with me to the kitchen. We were all still in our pajamas, and everyone except Mom was already up and eating breakfast. Carol called out to Bethany, Did you have a good sleep, sweetie? Bethany smiled. Clinton's bed is so comfy. It's a lot better than our bed at UW. She then grabbed the coffee pot and poured both of us a coffee and asked, Does anyone else want a warm-up or a refill? Everyone held up their cups. Bethany was once again working her magic as she smiled at each person while walking around the table and filling their coffee cups. Geraldine asked, What is that beautiful perfume you're wearing? It's really subtle, but smells so good. Bethany blushed and replied, It's cherry blossom body spray. It only costs $5 at the university drugstore, so being a student, it's what I can afford right now. Cindy added, How do you two ever get any studying done when she smells so delicious like that? Both Bethany and I exchanged glances, grinned knowingly, and blushed. Bethany replied with a shy smirk, We manage sometimes better than other times. Everyone laughed. Albert looked at my feet and then examined them more closely. There were remnants of red on one side of my big toe. Why do you have red paint on the side of your toe? I gave Bethany a curious look and asked, "Yeah, Bethany, why do I have red paint on the side of my toes?" She started to laugh and said, "A week ago I woke up on Sunday morning and Clinton's toes were sticking out from the blankets and I thought they needed a touch of color. So I painted them all with nail polish before he woke up." She was laughing even harder now. "Clinton always wears flip-flops to breakfast and he didn't notice his toes until someone in the cafeteria asked him why they were painted red." The whole breakfast table erupted in laughter. I added, "Life with Bethany is like that. Thanks to her, we have even been banned from the bubble tea shop on campus." "Now that was not my fault," Bethany laughed as she defended herself and pretended to be innocent. "He started it by putting the sticky bubble tea bubbles in my hair, so I told him I needed a hug because he had been so mean to me, and when he stood up I might have poured a little bit down the inside of his pants. And we both got kicked out." Bethany was in complete play mode now. Between our funny stories and her expressive, playful way of describing life's events, she had my entire family in stitches and wrapped around her fingers. Even my dad had joined us and was enjoying her playful banter. "What do you want to do with your university education?" Dad asked. Bethany responded with a sweet smile. "I really love children. I want to be a kindergarten or first grade teacher. They're a lot of fun. And you can read them stories, act out all the parts with them, and show them how amazing our world really is." That doesn't seem like a well-paying career. We all turned to see Mom standing near the kitchen island as she went to pour herself a coffee. Mom growled, "Who was the last to drain the coffee pot?" Bethany quickly responded, "Sorry, that was me. I'll make some more." Which is technically true, but she had drained it by filling everyone else's cups. As I watched Bethany make the coffee, I could see that she had retreated into her cautious mode. She did that whenever she wasn't sure if someone was safe to be around. When the fresh coffee was made, she poured my mom's cup first and offered it around again to everyone else. As Bethany quietly refilled our cups again, my mom remarked, "You look like you have done this before." "I've been a waitress at a place called Fat Freddy's back home for 2 summers now. Freddie has promised me a summer job between school years until I graduate." Mom gave Bethany a judgmental stare and then said, "That sounds to me like a minimum wage job. How do you pay for university?" My mom and dad help pay the tuition, and I cover the rest myself by working. And if I need it, student loans. Is this why you're sleeping with my son in his dorm room that I pay for? So you can avoid paying rent and give him a little thrill while you scam your way through college? Bethany looked at me with a somber expression and told my mom, "I'm in love with Clinton. I stay with him because I love being with him. I love talking with him until 2 a.m. in the morning. We tell each other everything. I love waking up beside him and watching him sleep. We are each other's soulmates. That's why I live with him." "But you don't love contributing to his university housing expenses. I don't think that's very fair, Bethany. It makes me think you are using him and freeloading off his generosity. If your parents are too poor to fund your education, then you shouldn't be in school. And you shouldn't be wasting my money." I could see the look of contempt cross my mom's face. She was scheming in her mind to hurt Bethany again. Mom then stated, "Clinton's housing costs us $8,000 per year at UW. Bethany, this means you owe me $4,000 if you are staying with my son." I replied, "Mom, that's absurd. We have to pay that regardless of whether Bethany stays with me or not. They charge for space, not how many people live together." "Do other students bunk together and pool their money to share the housing costs?" Mom asked with a knowing smirk. She continued, "I think you know the answer to that one, Clinton. Bethany should not be treated any differently. She pays her fair share for housing if she's staying with you." Mom then looked at Bethany and asked, "Can you write me a check for $4,000 before you leave here this weekend?" Bethany started to cry silently. She shook her head and softly replied, "I don't have that kind of money right now. All I have is $1,500 in the bank and it needs to last until next May. So then, if I understand you right, you won't make it through school unless you're living with my son. What will you do when he graduates and moves away?" Bethany and I had already discussed that. Our plan was for me to get an architect in training job at a firm in Seattle. I needed to complete that part for 4 years after finishing my formal university education to qualify for my professional credentials. Then I would secure an apartment near the university, and Bethany would live there with me while she completed her remaining 3 years. Bethany looked at me, and the sadness on her face was breaking my heart. Mom was going to make sure she made it as difficult as possible for us to stay together. Mom asked Bethany, "Are you going to ask to live with another young man so you can carry on your rent for benefits scam?" "Never!" Bethany exclaimed in anger. "I love Clinton. He is my heart and soul. How could you even say that about me? I have never been a loose or floozy girl." "I am a very astute lawyer, young lady." Mom raised her voice again in reply. "I see schemes like yours almost every day. That's how young women like you make it in college these days. Personal benefits for rent." Bethany raised her hands in the air as more tears fell down her face and answered defiantly, "I am not having this conversation with you." She stormed out of the kitchen and ran upstairs to my room. My mom looked at me like a triumphant and arrogant commander. "I think I know why you attracted such a pretty girl, Clinton. I'm very sure of that now. Until she pays her fair share, I am deducting that amount, and a little more from your monthly support." All of us sitting around the table felt angry and horrified at Mom. Yet, none of us stood up to her, not even Dad. There was complete silence. Mom had declared war on Bethany, and we all knew it was pointless to argue when she was in this kind of headspace. When I returned to my room, Bethany was on the floor, leaning against the wall and sobbing. She was hugging her knees and had buried her head. I felt ashamed that I couldn't defend her more than I did. My mom had essentially accused her of being a low-paid streetwalker. I wondered why I had even bothered to try to integrate this innocent, sweet, and kind-hearted girl, who until now had only known her parents to be loving and supportive, into our mean-spirited family. It felt beyond cruel. Then one by one the siblings all entered my room. My dad was the last to come in and sat down just across from Bethany. "Bethany," my dad gently said, "our family, and especially my wife, has major issues, as you are no doubt aware by now. But we all love you." He then reached out and handed her a check for $10,000. I understood what my dad was trying to do, but Bethany took it as a serious insult. She looked up at him and said defiantly, with tears of anger, "I'm not a call girl for hire. I won't be bought. I would rather starve on the streets than accept money from this family." Carol reached down and tapped Dad on the shoulder. "Dad, now is not the time. Money can't solve everything." As Dad got up to leave, I thought of all the times he handed out checks to people when Mom did her sabotage routine. This was the first time someone had turned him down. Bethany may have come from a modest middle-class family, but she was absolute in her principles and convictions. She would never compromise them no matter how much money was offered. And in this situation, money couldn't fix anything. We were supposed to stay for the whole long weekend, but Bethany wanted to leave as soon as she could. After loading my car with our weekend luggage, she gave everyone a hug except my dad. She was sending him a clear message that he had insulted her beyond words. That was Bethany's way of punishment. She was never one to raise her voice and yell, but when she was angry or frustrated, she would go silent and freeze you out. That was hard for me to understand at first because I had been raised by such a loud, angry mother that I didn't know anything else. I was never a yeller myself, but I wasn't used to being with someone who could go silent like that either. We drove back to UW in total silence for an hour and a half. Bethany didn't even glance at me once during that time. I was beginning to worry that she was considering ending our relationship. Around the halfway point of the trip, I pulled into a small cafe. Bethany looked at me and asked, "Why are we stopping?" "I'm starting to feel hungry, and it's way past lunchtime. I thought we could get something to eat." "You go ahead, I'll wait in the car." I nodded and then stepped out. After I ordered my food, even though it was chilly outside, I sat on the cafe patio to eat. I didn't want to be inside around other people. Eventually, Bethany got out of the car and sat down across from me. She asked, "How did you survive in your home?" I shook my head. "I don't know. You just learn to adapt, I guess. Your brothers, sister, and their partners are so kind. I don't understand. Why do they tolerate that kind of behavior from your mom? Once again, I faced a question I couldn't really answer. Most of them were now in their early 30s and had well-established careers, yet for some reason, they all seemed powerless against my mom. It was as if she could press a freeze button on all of us, cause major trauma, then unfreeze us and watch us struggle to understand what just happened. It was like she did this out of spite. Did your mom ever tell you she loved you or that she was proud of you? I looked away. I didn't want to answer that question. Bethany watched me as my eyes filled with tears and my swirling emotions. She took a sip of my coffee and smiled at me and kindly said, "It's okay, Clinton. You and I are okay. I still love you as much as I ever have, okay? Look at me, baby." I turned to look at Bethany, trying to hide my sadness. She continued as she reached across the small, round table and took my hands. "I love you because you have a soft and gentle heart. Baby, I love you more than words can say. I was raised in a home where my mom and dad told me they loved me and were proud of me all the time. People need to hear that. You need to hear that. Baby, I am proud of you. We will figure this out together. I'm not moving out either. Your mom can go to hell before I leave you all alone. I want to hold you and keep you safe from her. I'm strong enough to do that for you. I want to laugh with you and cry with you. Besides your mother, I love your family. They are wonderful people, but they're too hurt and confused to see how serious it all really is, including your dad. What kind of response is it when he hands out checks to pay for your mother's insults and outbursts? It's not a response from Bethany and Clinton, that's for sure. A Bethany and Clinton response is to talk it out, for hours if we must, and then we apply our own healthy way of fixing our issues. Never with money. That moment in time had a profound impact on me. It was like Bethany shifted into a higher gear mentally and was able to accurately psychoanalyze my entire world. Suddenly, it all made much more sense. How did I not see this before? How did my whole family of wealthy, well-educated people not see this earlier? I asked, how do I fix this? How do I fight my mom when all she will do in response is bring more pain? Your mom is a narcissist. She can't be fixed. I am learning about that in my Parental Psychology 101 class. When you read what a narcissist is, she checks almost every box on the list. Bethany later showed me that list. I read further and was astounded. For the first time in my life, I could now understand and label my mom's issues. It also made me realize that Morna was very similar. That's why they got along so well. But my mom viewed Bethany as an extreme threat, one to be eliminated through bullying and scheming. But Bethany had figured that out as well. She later gave the rest of my family, including my dad, a well-written and university peer-reviewed article on the subject. It had a huge impact on everyone. Bethany continued, "Clinton, you and I are a couple now. We're not just boyfriend and girlfriend anymore. We have shared goals and dreams, and we'll need to think independently of your mom and probably your family. Otherwise, we won't be able to break free and live our own lives. I don't care how much money or influence your mom has. I would rather live in a tiny apartment and be free and independent with you than subject ourselves to giving up our dreams just to have material wealth. That's not us. That's not what Clinton and Bethany are all about. We believe in love, forgiveness, encouragement, and hope. We dream beautiful dreams together. I don't need a big fancy house or an expensive car. I just need a loving and kind-hearted soulmate. Can you imagine a life like that together? I can. I sat there with tears streaming down my face, listening to this inspiring, deep-thinking, beautiful girl. She was offering me a life filled with love, laughter, and soul-satisfying fulfillment. She made me believe in her dreams, our dreams together. She made them so vivid that I could reach out and touch them. I really want everything you are saying. More tears streamed down my face. How did you become so wise? I love how you see things. I want that more than anything. I want this life with you forever, Bethany. I can't imagine my life going any other way. Bethany moved her chair right beside me and gently wiped my tears away with her hands. She whispered, "Baby, I see your heart. It's so gentle and pure. There's a way out of your pain if we do it together. I want to walk with you each step of the way. When we walked back into the dorm room at UW, I showed Bethany a check that my dad had put in my pocket for the same $10,000. I think he put it in my jacket pocket while it was hanging up by the front entrance at home. Bethany looked at it and said, "If you love me, you will tear it up. I meant it when I said I won't be subjected to them, and neither will you." I smiled and tore up the check. It felt strangely good to do that, as if in the spiritual realm I had just defeated some unseen enemy. We were much poorer after that, but we both felt a genuine sense of freedom from then on. Later, we both applied for and received student loans. Besides working summer jobs, the student loans covered the rest of my final year and the next 3 years of Bethany's education. The loans were definitely a burden, especially after we started paying them off, but we remained free from my parents' financially manipulative prison. However, this raised the stakes as my mom intensified her personal attacks on Bethany. Currently, I am excluded from my family's will. Of the millions they possess, I will receive nothing when they pass away. That is the best gift Bethany could have given me. Their love carried a price of control and manipulation. Bethany's love was a gift of freedom to me. It was invaluable. I am so grateful I listened to and followed her warnings over the years. By the end of my 4th year at UW, I was ready to graduate. I was 24 and Bethany had turned 21. It felt good to no longer have to cram for exams, rush to finish assignments, or worry about marks. I was finally free from all that. On graduation day, my parents didn't show up at all. In fact, no one from my family was there. Bethany's parents, however, were present. They were just as happy for me as Bethany was. I remember receiving a big hug from both Sandy and Robert. That evening, they took us out to dinner at a fancy restaurant. While we ate, we had a great time talking about mine and Bethany's future together. Her parents were very encouraging. I genuinely felt loved and supported by them. If I could choose my birth parents, I'd pick a couple like them. They didn't care about chasing the next dollar or looking good at social gatherings. They only cared about taking care of their family and making sure they were truly happy. At the start of summer, I got a modestly paying architecture intern job at a small firm in Seattle. Even though the pay just covered our expenses, Bethany and I felt like we were on top of the world. We also found a tiny bachelor apartment with 500 square feet of living space. The best part was it had in-suite laundry machines. That was a huge bonus for us. Bethany got a job working as a waitress at a diner just down the road. Aside from Bethany's classes, she hardly ever spent time on the university campus anymore. We were really starting to create our own little world, with a foundation built on love and devotion to each other. Then, out of the blue, my mom and dad came to visit us on a midsummer Saturday. Bethany and I had planned to spend the day together shopping for music CDs and fresh vegetables for a dinner she planned to make later that evening. When my parents arrived, they were offered seats at our small kitchen table on 2 mismatched chairs. Bethany made coffee for them using our pour-over coffee maker. We couldn't afford an electric coffee maker at that time. My mom silently looked around the small space and noticed our poster copies of famous artworks, our 3 scented candles sitting beside a couple of potted flowers on the windowsill, and pictures of Bethany and me at various places and stages over the past 3 years together. Bethany served them coffee in the only matching cups we owned. She placed milk and sugar on the table next to them. Mom asked, "Do you have any cream for my coffee?" "No, I'm sorry," Bethany replied. "All we have is milk right now. That's all that Clinton and I usually have with our coffees in the morning." Then, in her usual mom-insulting manner, she said to Bethany, "For a waitress, your skills are lacking. I would have thought you could at least get that part right, but then again, you work in a diner." Mom got up, went to the sink, and poured out the hot coffee. Bethany pursed her lips and shook her head in exasperation. Mom smirked at Bethany and said, "I'm sorry, dear. Did you think this was a social visit? I'm here to serve you a notice of a lawsuit I have against you and your parents. It is for the money that you scammed by convincing my son to provide you with housing and now food from last year through the next 3 years." She then pulled a thick envelope out of her purse and plopped it on the table. Bethany stared at the envelope, then looked back at my mom and replied solemnly, "You can take every penny I have or will ever make. You can craft clever schemes to make sure I bleed as much as possible. You can even attack my family and everyone I love, but you will never drive me away from Clinton. That is a fight you will lose every time." Love comes with a price, scammer girl. It's time to wake up to the real world. Bethany sniffed hard and gritted her teeth. Love. You have no understanding of what that actually means. You aren't capable of love. That part of your brain is damaged beyond repair. Your own children and your husband sitting here all know that about you. God only knows why they stick around, but know this about me. I don't fight in a world that only values status and wealth. I fight in a world that sees the heart. I see Clinton's heart, and it is pure and beautiful. It is not black like yours. In that arena, you are exposed and weak, and you will get slaughtered every time you enter there. Today, you didn't just serve me a lawsuit I can't afford. You've cut the throat of your own son. Do you think he will want to choose you after this, or abandon me? He loves me more than his own life. Why can't you ever see that? Mom walked to the door, turned, and gave Bethany another smirk. It feels good to make you pay. See you in court, scammer girl. Welcome to my arena. Bethany looked at the legal document. Mom was suing her and her parents for $103,000. She listed all of expenses Bethany had supposedly incurred and included inflation adjustments for future costs. The detail was extensive. Mom must have spent hours working this out. Bethany shook her head and looked at me as she wiped away her tears. She softly said, "Let's go grocery and vegetable shopping. A lawsuit like this isn't going to change our day today." I nodded and gave her a warm hug. We held each other for a long time. Then Bethany joked, "Who knew that loving you would be so expensive? But even if I have to pay, it will be worth every penny." That was the day I finally realized that my mom wasn't just mentally unwell. She was evil. She took delight in and derived some kind of wicked satisfaction from tormenting us. She wouldn't be satisfied until she had won and Bethany had lost. That's also when I realized how angry I had been all these years at my dad. He never stood up to her or challenged anything she did. He just wrote checks behind her back, trying to mitigate the damage she caused. He was her ever-faithful puppet. Dad was addicted to her inherited wealth. He had sold his soul and found ways and excuses to stay with her in order to keep the wealth flowing. All of us, as her children, were her puppets. Bethany recognized this and helped lead me out of her control with one loving act after another. Bethany became my beacon of healthy and holistic perspective. She refused to ever succumb to financial intimidation, no matter the expense. Doing so would have compromised her radiant soul. She could never allow that. She was becoming my hero.